Minnesota Vikings are somehow undervalued with JJ McCarthy as a starting quarterback. There's still a lot of questions, but all the focus is on the questions, and none of it is about the track record of Kevin O'Connell, the great roster surrounding him, an elite level play caller. Why is that? Why is nobody else getting any credit for potential Viking success? But it all boils down to McCarthy. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the salary cap and a whole lot more here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL. Back to back.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. Let's start off with this, because Jason put in the comment that he's not happy about back-to-back international games. Let's just put it this way. A lot of rumors flying around. Even like Ben Lieber, who works for the Vikings Entertainment Network, kind of put those out as these are the rumors. Nothing's good enough for me to write about. Let's just put it that way. It's all scuttlebutt. We'll get some kind of confirmation likely next week because the schedule comes out Wednesday. And just so everybody knows,
usually release the international dates right before.
Yeah, we'll probably hear the international dates that morning.
Yeah, from NFL Network or something.
Maybe starting Monday or Tuesday. They like to release a couple games here, a couple games there to keep them in the news cycle. Because you know what? And I mean this with all positivity, because this is just brilliant PR. They're attention whores. They want all the attention on themselves, and they're good at it. Like, in the world of pro wrestling, WWE is a scumbag company, but good Lord, is their PR great. Tremendous PR. And the NFL has that. They have great PR. So as we know more, we'll end up talking about it. But with the schedule release, we're going to be going live as the schedule gets released. So that episode of the Real Forno Show will be more of a special event where I believe it's a 7 p.m. Central drop. We will be live at 7 p.m. or 7:05 Central instead of our normal 6:05. So plan for that next week. And the following Monday, we may not have a show. I have not talked to you about this, Dave, but I'll be returning from South Dakota. I don't know if I'm getting home in time for a show. So just scheduling stuff. But yeah, with the schedule, we genuinely don't have enough information for me to like actually write about it. It's all scuttlebutt. And could that be true? Absolutely. Could it be false? Absolutely. And until we can get some more concrete information, it is what it is. And quite frankly, playing back-to-back international games, I don't know. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. At least if you're going to fly out there, you know, you get to make the most of it. But what would be really interesting is, I believe this would be the Vikings-Steelers would be the first matchup ever to take place in 3 different countries. The only ones that might be able to supersede that are like those few years where the Bills played in Toronto for a couple games. I'll have to kind of look into that, but I think Vikings Steelers, because they've already played in London, they've already played in the US. Now they'll have played a game in Ireland, which means the United States, England, and Ireland would be 3 different countries that one game has played in, which would be wild. Would be absolutely incredible to have one game played in 3 countries. It would also be, by my research, the second time a repeat international game has taken place, with the only one prior that I noticed was Bills Jaguars. That happened twice over the course of 9 years.
Now, what I'm looking forward to is Steelers Vikings, in Dublin because there are so many storylines to go along with that. Dublin was founded by the Vikings. And
look at that. We're getting a history lesson tonight.
Yes. And eventually they got kicked out after like 350 years or whatever. But it was a town founded by the invading Vikings. And the whole idea of the Vikings going back and defending or attacking again the steel curtain, I think it's going to be wonderful. And I'll have more storylines as we get closer to that. I've been looking at it, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a really cool game. And obviously, Dublin is a growing hotspot for football. College football has played their opening game there the last few years, and it's done really, really good numbers. I mean, Notre Dame obviously played in that game 2 years ago, but last year was Florida State, Georgia Tech, and I believe it was still a sellout. Like that says something. There is a thirst for football in Ireland. I think it'll be cool for whatever game ends up going there. But just hopefully it ends up being good. Now, the one good thing about it potentially being Ireland is I believe it's a significantly shorter flight than London by like an hour or two from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal too. Shorter travel time. And when you're making that kind of travel, having that shorter travel time does make a difference. Because remember, the Vikings aren't ones to fly out on Monday and stay all week. They fly Friday.
Yeah. And it's, I looked it up when I did the initial research when this was possible. The Steelers is a half an hour shorter, and I think their flight was 7, and the Vikings was like 7.5. Minneapolis to Dublin.
Yeah, and on a charter flight where the Vikings are, paying for everybody to fly, I'm sure that it's going to be relatively comfortable. Now, it's not going to be perfect. Don't get me wrong, because, flying stinks, especially, I feel for the guys like Darisaw, Harrison Phillips. I'm one of them. It is not fun to fly. It is not fun at all. So hopefully things go relatively easy for those guys when that does happen. But as we said, we don't know for sure that they will be playing 1 or 2 games. So what's also really interesting is if they were to play both games in the UK, they would essentially be turning 2 road games into neutral site games. Because even though they would be considered the road team, let's be real, those are neutral site. So all of a sudden, the Vikings will have 8 home games, 7 true road games, and 2 neutral site. That flips the script on a schedule where they're already supposed to have 8 home games and 9 road games. That becomes a big deal. And because they will have had 2 games overseas, they'll have to go from Ireland to London at some point. But as long as they maintain their structure, they maintain their week, hey, we are going to do this. We're going to make sure that we have a relatively normal week. We're just going to be in a different location. We're going to have our practice. We're going to have our meetings. And as long as you make that happen, like the Vikings have shown that being thrown curveballs like this is not that big of a deal. So I'm not concerned from a Vikings perspective about going overseas for 9 days. It may be a little tough on the players. Like, hey, I don't get to go home. I don't get to see my family unless they fly their family out, which I'm sure some of them do. It's honestly one of those things. Who cares? I think it'll be negligible as far as the on-field performance. And to me, like, we don't want to completely ignore the human element of this whole conversation because that's an important thing here. But from what we are talking about, we're talking about the on-field product. The on-field product shouldn't suffer at all. So from that perspective, I wouldn't be concerned as a fan. I am not concerned as an analyst. I would feel for them as people. But at the end of the day, you basically get a 9-day vacation in Europe. Yeah, you don't get to do all the sightseeing, but if you've never been, you get to do some. That kind of rules. That's fun. Hey, it's Monday night. We have nothing to do. Let's go get dinner at a pub. Like, you are able to do that because you're overseas for work. Hell, when I go to Mobile every year for the Senior Bowl, I get excited for the oysters. Might not do that next year after getting food poisoning, but it's cool. It's an important thing. You get to do all those little nuanced details. So let's kind of move on because there's a lot that I want to talk about here. We'll start with
I just want to answer Giotano's question. Nothing is confirmed. Either game, whether it be one or back-to-back games, none of it is confirmed. But those are the rumors out there.
Mm-hmm. And we all know rumors. They could be 100% true. They could be 100% bullshit. So if it's not good enough for me to write about, that tells you kind of what the status of the rumor is. Like, I'll write about some rumors like, oh, this was, if Paul Allen drops it on his show that I think we're going to be in Europe for 2 straight weeks. Okay. That to me says I can probably write about it because when Paul says something, it's coming from the team. He works for the team. And I think sometimes we forget that because he calls the games. He doesn't just work for a K-Fan. He works for the Minnesota Vikings. So when he says something, you take it seriously. Now, the one person that this is mainly coming from is Andrew Filipponi, radio voice in Pittsburgh. He's not known as the most reliable source. He's been right on schedule stuff, but it's not good enough for me to feel real comfortable. And that came from me reaching out to people who know like who the source is in their background, not just me from a national perspective. So I don't feel comfortable going in that direction because of the people who I trust, what they said. And they said, don't write it yet. Get it ready just in case, but don't write it. So that's something to be mindful of. But let's kind of move forward. Before we really get into the minutia of JJ McCarthy and how the Vikings are kind of being disrespected by pretty much everybody that's not local media, I want to talk about the salary cap and kind of where it's at. So this is more of a refresher. We've had these conversations as I'm going to pull up the numbers and some of those things. One of the reasons why it's so interesting when it comes to the salary cap is they've spent the last 3 years getting it to a point of maximum flexibility. And that was the whole goal of the competitive rebuild. We're going to try and win, but we have to do it within certain confinements. Those confinements were the salary cap. And they had to right a lot of wrongs and correct a lot of unfortunate deals that Rick Spielman signed. The Kirk Cousins one. They had to maneuver that. But they also were continuing to try to win, so they did the 1-year extension after 22. And then 23, 24, he plays all 3 of those years. Honestly, played the best football of his career in 24 before the Achilles injury. Which, I'm going to be honest, that is very frustrating. But there's also the other factor here.
Yeah, but how many games did he win in 24? 2?
No, he went 4-4.
4-4. Okay. 500. Typical Kirk. But yes, he was playing well.
He was playing very well. And the whole idea was, look, we know we have to do some of these things. We have to take it on the chin because we have to fix this and we have to make it flexible. We have to gain that peak flexibility. And by doing so, we can set ourselves up for success down the road. That's why last year they had $72 million in dead cap. And it's also why they had about $70 million of cap space to spend this offseason on players to really fortify this roster. But because of that, and because of the extensions are really kicking in, because remember, Rob Brzezinski has a pattern. He has like 1 to 2 years where it's really inexpensive, and then boom, big dollar hits for the rest of the deal. Now, you can argue that, hey, maybe that's not the best route to go. But when you have a guy like a Will Fries who has relatively low guarantees, if he stinks, you can get out of that deal for that and save $10 million the year you cut him. That's why you do some of those things, because it ends up being cheaper for you. It's like, kind of like an easy out. But the Vikings have a lot of work to do this next offseason. As of right now, and this number will go up. It will look worse, but it does not matter. Vikings right now have 29 players under contract for next season, and they are over $32.4 million over the cap. It's a scary number, but it also doesn't matter. And let me kind of explain why. The Vikings next year will have a lot of draft picks. They're projected, I believe, to have 7, 8, or 9. There's still uncertainties surrounding what the what do you call it? The Cam Robinson contract. No, not the compensatory pick. I mean, there's one. I don't think the Trent Sherfield one will manifest, but time will tell on that. It's the trade compensation for Cam Robinson. Is it a 4th and you get no 7th? Or is it a 5th and you get a 7th back? The only thing that's been reported so far is a playtime incentive. Now, what the playtime incentive is, could that playtime incentive have been multiple postseason games? Could it have been they make the NFC Championship game and he plays? We really don't know. I'm going to kind of be under the assumption for right now that the 4th round pick is gone, because to me, playtime incentive, if he plays the whole regular season, that'll probably be it. But we don't know. So that is currently in flux. But the Vikings will have their full contingency of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks, plus a 3rd round compensatory pick, plus either a 4th or 5th round compensatory pick, and potentially multiple other day 3 picks. So with that fluidity, it's a little frustrating, but there's going to be multiple players from that draft class on the roster next year who will be making less money. And those kind of contracts are going to be huge when you have a lot of players making big bucks. Now, this is where things get really interesting. One of the things about like restructures, you don't want to push money out because it's essentially dead money. You can't move that money. Once you use an option bonus, which is just a signing bonus, but you have it trigger in future calendar years. So Justin Jefferson had an option bonus, I believe, this next year for $6 million. Well, it's like $6 million here. It's like a $30 million option bonus, something like that. That spreads out over 5 years at $6 million a year. That is really nice to have because you can give him a big lump sum of money and you don't have to take the whole hit right away, but you can't touch it once that hit comes around. Base salary, roster bonuses. That roster bonus is just a one-time lump sum, and they get it that year and it hits the salary cap that year. You can turn that into signing bonus. You can cut a player before that vests, but you can't do that with a signing bonus. It's there. So there are ways to be flexible with kind of how they want to maneuver. They could sign Brian O'Neill to a contract extension. He's got a base salary of $18.9 million next year. Cap hits about 23-ish. But if you sign him to an extension, you could lower that base salary to like the vet minimum of like $1.2 million, and then give him an extra $4 million in signing bonus. So $5.2 million, you're right there. You can save $13.7 million on the salary cap by giving a guy an extension you would have given anyways. And that's right there. That's a third of the money that you need to get as of right now. Jonathan Grenard is $18.39 million. TJ Hawkinson, 15.4. Justin Jefferson, 24.99. I find that number very funny because it's not 25. Andrew Van Ginkel, 15.39. Christian Darrisaw, almost 13.3 million. Javon Hargrave, 14.2. And if he's not very good, they could cut him for a decent cap savings. Jonathan Allen, 16 million. Byron Murphy Jr., 16 million. Will Fry is 12.61 million. All of those numbers can be maneuvered. So if the Vikings want to like mess with Andrew Van Ginkel's salary, well, guess what? He has void years. So you can spread it out over 5 years. Jonathan Grenard has a couple void years on his deal. You could spread it out. TJ Hawkinson. Like all these guys are guys that you think you're going to keep around for a while. With the exception being the defensive tackles who are brand new to the team. They're almost 30. And then Will Fries is an exception too, because he's got to prove that he can come back from that leg injury. The contract says he's going to, but just like we'll talk about JJ McCarthy, nothing's certain until it's certain. So the way they sign that contract gives them the flexibility to have an out if he stinks, because of the uncertain nature of who he is and what he is, because of the injury and the short stint of great play, because it was only 5 games. 5 games is a good sample size, but is it enough to guarantee that he's going to continue that? No, it's not. So they've built in some of those flexibility arms. And like Darrisaw might be the one who you just want to maneuver with. Same with Justin Jefferson, because I know no matter what, those guys are on my team unless they, 1, tragically pass away, or 2, they do something absolutely obscenely illegal. Those are the only 2 ways those guys are not on my team. So those are the guys who are more likely to have their contracts messed with, because you know that they're going to be here. You're not in danger of like cutting them in 2 years and then all of a sudden, bada bing, it's just a ton of dead money. So they could create, just by looking at these numbers, 11 contracts, around $10 to $15 million in savings per contract on average. That's $150 million. Now, they're not going to do all of those. You know, maybe Jonathan Gennard gets an extension because he's just playing bonkers football, and his average annual value is 47.5% of the top of the market. He's not Myles Garrett, and he shouldn't be paid like Myles Garrett. But do you think he should maybe be paid closer to someone like Nick Bosa, who's making 34? Maybe Grenard deserves somewhere around like 28. I don't think anybody would complain about him having earned a raise. And those are things that are going to come into consideration too. I'm intrigued to see how they maneuver here, but it's clear they have a ton of options. And when you have a ton of options, it gives you a lot of flexibility, which is what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has tried so hard to give this organization. They have their core pieces. They feel like they have core pieces at every single premium position. Now, we still have to see with quarterback, and we'll get to that. But they believe they have their guy in JJ McCarthy. And once you have those core pieces, now you just filter around it. And look, the salary cap's not going to be the healthiest, but they could still clear up enough space to have $30 million in cap room. Hey, we need to add 2 pieces. Let's go do that. They have flexibility. I wish it was a little healthier where, hey, we didn't have to worry about restructuring all these deals, signing extensions. But you know what? This is what happens when you have a really good roster. You have to pay people. And this isn't going to be like the 2019 Vikings, where after the year they had Xavier Rhodes, who was pretty much done, and they had to cut Linval Joseph for money reasons. This is going to be a different level. They have flexibility. They're not paying guys on huge contracts for long periods of time that are older. Because remember, Hargrave and Allen are just on 2-year deals. And you can escape them. I mean, you'll get hit with dead money, but you can get rid of them if they both stink. Now, that would really suck, but you can do it. So the Vikings have all this flexibility, and they're going to feel comfortable going in. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited for what this next offseason can bring. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to skip ahead of the 25 season. But understanding where the health is of the salary cap is important, especially because right now the Vikings have $18 million in cap space. That does not mean they're going to bring in another player. They can.
Doesn't include the Van Ginkel's extension.
Yes, it does.
I haven't seen those numbers yet, but I've been busy, so
they came out over the weekend. So I actually have the tab up. So here's basically how it looks. His base salary this year dropped about $3.4 million, but he got an extra $2 million in signing bonus. His cap number dropped $1 million this year. Cap number next year, 19.4, and a void year in 27 at 8.8. He also has a void year he has void years in 27, 20, 29, and 2030. So there's flexibility there. Like, the big thing with the Van Ginkel contract is they weren't trying to save money now. They were trying to keep him long term. And Kwesi Ofo-Mensah said that they wanted to sign him to a 3-year deal. He said no, because another team was offering him a 2-year deal and he wanted another chance to hit the market at a relatively young age. He would hit the market at 31. You can make a big money contract at 31 years old. So that gave him flexibility.
Von Miller is an example.
6 years, $120 million. Now, he got cut after 3, but we knew he was getting cut after 3. That was how the contract was structured. But the Vikings got their guy. They have Van Ginkel under contract for next year. And when it comes to like the salary cap of that $18 million, $4 to $5 million is going to go to the draft class. $4 to $5 million is going to go to the practice squad. $4 to $5 million is going to be specifically for in-season acquisition. So theoretically, you have maybe $3 million extra. And if you bring in a veteran, that's going to cost more money. So right now, the lowest guy on the totem pole, and here's how you have to look at it. The lowest contract in the top 53 is $960,000. So if you sign a guy for $4 million, the cap hit is going to be $4 million minus $960,000. So you're going to add 3.04 million, I think it is. Or 3.4. No, 3.04. I got it. I need to stop thinking of myself out loud while we're talking. So that's how you have to look at it. So that would completely eliminate that little extra cushion. And the Vikings would like to be able to push some money forward, because then that will obviously help. But pushing money outward is one thing that we're seeing teams do more and more. Don't look at the Saints. The Saints are an egregious organization. Look at the Eagles. It's an interest-free loan. Yeah, you're going to have to pay that money. But paying $10 million at a $250 million cap is significantly more than $10 million at a $300 million cap, because it's all about percentages. And the Vikings pushing it forward, it's about taking an interest-free loan. And if you do it in the right way, if you do it smart, it is a really good idea. But it's not quite that simple. You have to be smart about it. I think the Vikings are an organization that's going to continue to be smart about it. Like, the salary cap, that number looks bad. I'm not convinced it's bad, because they have 11 guys making over $12 million in base salary that they can maneuver with. There will be a lot of restructuring next year, and that is okay. It's okay to have some restructures. It's not that big a deal. That's just the cost of doing business in the NFL.
It works. I think Kwesi's done a good job, and Brez, of setting this up to have the ability to be flexible.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree completely. Speaking of flexible, you know who is flexible, Dave? Our friends at Underdog Fantasy. And one of the fun things that you can do is, if you don't necessarily like the over-under that they give you, you can move it up or down. Now, the odds will change, and the amount you could potentially win changes as well. Just like it would in Vegas at a sports book. It's the same thing, except it's just over-under stats. That's it. You just got to pick 2 to 8 of them, and you can set your own lines. And that's what's really cool about Underdog. Plus, if you do an 8-way lineup, you can win up to 1,000 times your initial wager. Plus, by using the promo code Forno in any of those states you see on the screen, you can get up to 1,000 times your first deposit back in bonus credits. It's by using the promo code Forno, Forno. That's simple. It's a lot of fun. I was doing some with the UFL yesterday. I think I'm going to have a little fun with Anthony Edwards tomorrow night against Steph Curry. He's going to want to make a statement. And Jimmy Butler comes back to town. Whoopee. But remember, it's all in fun. So if you feel like it's taken over, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right.
Yep.
While we have you here, while we're doing our little fun spiel, please like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. Ringing the bell is the number one way to know whenever we put something out. Sometimes Dave and I have to push the show back a little bit because what was he doing tonight? He was ignoring me. Well, no, he was doing stuff at his new house. So we almost had to push the show back because of just timing purposes. That's why ringing the bell is going to be so important. We try our hardest every week to have the show at its exact time, but sometimes that does not happen. So something to be mindful of, that you're just going to want to hit that bell.
Yep. And if everybody, this week's going to be up in the air. Besides home repairs, get ready to move in. We've got a moving truck coming sometime this week, hopefully. And be aware that there will be times that we'll have to move shows around. So.
Mm-hmm. And remember, it is never my fault. It is always Odie's fault. Well, I got to tell you, Dave, he has farted 3 times, and it is rank. It is rough in this office.
Gas. Mm-hmm.
I challenge you, go back and try and figure out when I started smelling his farts. I'm very curious to see if you can figure it out, because I don't think I made a move because I smell them and go, crap. Oh, crap. Here we go. That's just what happens with Odie boy. He loves to fart. But that's what happens with your little flat-faced dogs. Now
are we going to talk about JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, I'm pissed. I'm real annoyed because the consensus seems to be from like national media and the sports books is the Vikings are being severely underrated just because JJ McCarthy's never started a game. Nothing else matters. JJ McCarthy. Oh, we just don't know. Oh, the Vikings weren't confident in JJ McCarthy. That's why they were trying to get Aaron Rodgers. Look, I didn't like the Aaron Rodgers stuff. I don't know anybody else who liked the Aaron Rodgers stuff. But let's also be real about it. If you have a guy who was the MVP a couple years ago call you and be like, hey, I would like to come play for you. You just lost your starting quarterback. You listen. And you figure it out, and you have those conversations. You know what they did, and they were candid about it. But you know what they decided? No, we're good. We got McCarthy. We're going to be fine. And I think the one thing that really annoys me more than anything, Dave, with this whole entire conversation, when you're looking at the future of the Minnesota Vikings, you have McCarthy. You have Kevin O'Connell. Dave, what is Kevin O'Connell better than anybody in the National Football League?
Well, he's got the reputation of being a quarterback whisperer and
Boom.
turn around quarterbacks' careers.
The following
Even if
quarterback,
it's the past or not, he's now, a fixture as a backup quarterback. And who thought he was going to be in the league prior to that? Last. It's amazing. And then of course, Sam Darnold last year, best season of his career.
The following quarterbacks played their best football under Kevin O'Connell: Kirk Cousins, Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Sam Darnold. Why in the world are we not talking about that being the one key for the Viking season? JJ McCarthy theoretically should also play his best football under Kevin O'Connell. And because he has such a track record of elevating these quarterbacks, why wouldn't he be able to do it with the 10th overall pick? Why can't he construct an offense to absolutely maximize everything that JJ McCarthy is great at? Which, you know what it is? Intermediate throws over the middle. That is, one, it's the hardest thing to do as an NFL quarterback. But two, if you can do it, you can just destroy people. It takes your game to another level. You have to cover every inch of the field. Now, it's also frustrating to kind of read, the Vikings have, I saw one article from CBS, they have the 4th worst quarterback room in the NFL. Sam Howell's like a slightly above average backup. There aren't that many guys who are true backups that I would want to prefer over a guy like Sam Howell. Joe Flacco is 40. Drew Lock isn't completely erratic. Like Howell has the guts, the toughness, and the running ability to be able to play well. He's got plenty of flaws, don't get me wrong, but I like what we have in him. Then you pair that with some of the other elements that you have in the room. Like your third string quarterback is Brett Rippon, who started multiple games. That's a solid piece to have. That's a really solid for a number 3, but it all boils down to JJ McCarthy. We just don't know what he is. I can tell you, I prefer this quarterback room to what the Saints have. Tyler Shuck, the ghost of Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, who's incredibly erratic. Like, it's so frustrating that we've just determined that JJ McCarthy, I mean, not this town, not Minnesota, not Vikings media. JJ McCarthy is just this unknown enigma. We can't trust him. Why? You anointed Caleb Williams as God the second he walked into the Bears organization. Why can't JJ McCarthy just be average to slightly above average in his first year as quarterback? And here's the other frustrating part that isn't being talked about outside of the local media. The Vikings roster is loaded. They have an elite offensive line. They have an almost elite defensive front. Yeah, the secondary doesn't have stars, but it has solid pieces, which is exactly how Brian Flores can utilize them to maximize it. They have elite weapons. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. They have a great backfield now. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. They can get the tough yards. They can get the doubles, the 20-yard gains with both guys. Why aren't we talking about that when it comes to JJ McCarthy? It's, we just don't know what he's going to be because he hasn't started a game yet. Well, guess what? Even if he's okay, let's just say he's okay. That team can win 12 games. Why can't we talk about that? To me, that's the frustrating thing. There is such a lack of wanting to understand where the Vikings are at across national media. And it's been that way consistently over the last couple of years. Heck, you could argue it's been that way consistently throughout my entire life. The national media just does not care enough about the Vikings to truly understand what they are. This team is loaded roster-wise. There are still holes, but you've got those elite position groups. The trenches are fixed. Now you put in JJ McCarthy. Hey, go play quarterback. Just go play. We'll figure it out. Guess what? You throw a few picks, we have the defense to bail you out. Oh, you're slightly off in throwing a jump ball to Justin Jefferson? Don't worry, he'll go get it. You're not asking him to come in and be perfect. Caleb Williams last year was asked, hey, our offensive line stinks, but we have the receivers. We don't have a good play caller, but go be great. The Vikings aren't even asking McCarthy to be great. They're just asking him to play. And then you know what? What if McCarthy is great? This could be a Super Bowl team. But we're too afraid to actually have an opinion. So it's almost like the consensus, like, let's push him down. USA Today had them 18th in the post-draft power rankings. 18th with that roster. Are you kidding? It's hilarious what kind of disconnect there is with this team in the national media. Now, are the Vikings going to be an elite team? I don't know. They have to get on the field for that. But give them some credit. A third-round pick who was a steal isn't going to make or break the Vikings team. Which to me, why like the post-draft like power rankings and stuff never made a lot of sense to me. Not a whole lot's changed. Unless you're getting like Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr., where that guy just completely transforms their offense in year one. Which the Vikings had that in Justin Jefferson in 2020. It's hard to find. So you can't rely on it. So I don't even want to deal with the fact that you have those things. Honestly, I just want to see the Vikings get the respect that they deserve. They don't need to be treated like gods. They don't need to be treated any better or worse than other teams. I just ask that you understand the context. Understand what JJ McCarthy is walking into when he plays football for the first time with the Vikings. And once you do that, then you'll truly know what the Vikings can be. And let me tell you, it can be a really, really good thing I think this team could do a lot of damage. And
listening to Purple Daily today, they were talking, some of the lines have come out already. Quarterbacks for one.
Yep.
And they're basically grouped in buckets. And J.J. McCarthy's in the same bucket as Caleb Williams, which is interesting. But they talked about the betting so far on over-under on win totals. The Vikings are the only team in the NFC North where the over is the majority.
Yeah. It's because they're completely undervalued by the market because, we have a rookie quarterback. Well, one, he's not a rookie. He's like a half rookie. Like, he didn't get to play during his rookie year, but being in the building and treating football like a job for a full year before you get on the field. We're already at a full year, Dave. Now, the next few months, just add to that. You're talking about 16 months. 16 months of being a guy. Well, I'll tell you, with 16 months, that's going to give you a hell of a leg up over a rookie who only has 4. He's not going to be your traditional rookie. And I think that's really important and something that gets glossed over. He's done the VR stuff, which we know was one of the main reasons why Jaden Daniels was so good as a rookie. He's been in all the meetings. He's heard all of the play calls from Kevin O'Connell, understands how O'Connell communicates with play calls, how he will tell you, hey, watch for this, watch for that, understand what Sam Darnold was doing. Because remember, the VR stuff was through Darnold's eyes. They had the GoPro attached to his helmet. So you could see exactly what Darnold sees. Those things matter. And like I said, I just wish that there was more context with national media, but I will also extend this caveat. It's hard to cover 32 teams. It's really hard. But we aren't even seeing anybody in national media really stick their neck out and say, hey, this team can be really good. And that, to me, that's the most frustrating thing. Now, it'd be one thing if there was a disconnect where, let's say Mina Kimes was one who said the Vikings were going to be really good. And then Colin Cowherd said it. But then other people had a little trepidation about it. Okay. That I can understand. You're concerned about McCarthy, but you also understand that this roster can be really good. We don't even have that first part. The first part is all coming from here. I want to see more from the national media that's just not, JJ McCarthy, who knows? There's a reason why, Dave, you said that the money is coming in significantly harder on the over with the Vikings win total. Because it should be 9.5 or you know what? I would put it at 10. Not even 10.5 or 9.5. Flat 10. You got to bet over or under. And you know what? If you push, because I think 10 wins makes a lot of sense. I think they end up with 11 or 12. But 10 is a good line. And the fact that it hasn't raised considering the public and sharp money, to me, is very interesting. This team is better than what they're being given right now. Look at what they did the last 3 years. 34-17 with a lot of holes on the roster. Last year, almost a third, over 25%, close to 30% of their salary cap was dead money. Look at what they did. Now they're going to have a significantly better pool of players because of how the money has been distributed. And you have a quarterback that could potentially do exactly what Sam Darnold did.
Or better.
Yeah. And an offensive line that's going to better protect him. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. This team deserves to be talked about in a better light. And it's not just about, we just don't know if JJ McCarthy is going to be good. Well, if he's okay, let's just talk about if he's an average quarterback, an average first-year starter, where he throws 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. How good is that football team? Guess what? That football team can still win 11, 12 games. And to me, that's what we should be talking about. I feel better now.
Oh, good. Sugarman was on as a guest, one of the shows. And he was talking to the Score North guy. Sugarman, the former trainer.
Interesting. Okay.
And he says he guarantees that JJ will be stronger this year because of just the training regimen while he was rehabbing than he was last year. And the fact that he got, the whole time off, he wasn't from, the national championship to draft to rookie mini camps, all that. He didn't go through the hitting the wall and stuff like that. All he did was get to develop. And that includes the rehab, which develops the legs, but he also had time doing more upper body and throwing and all sorts of other stuff than would normally happen to a regular quarterback. And he says he is going to benefit from that. And it's going to be interesting. I think JJ is going to come out firing, and it's going to be absolutely awesome. But we've got to see.
Yeah.
And yes, Sugarman was fired for a reason. And if you know what that was, pass it in private. So.
Yeah. Sometimes there's big things that happen. And with stuff like medical stuff, a lot of that will never get truly talked about because there's HIPAA laws that you have to deal with. And if you say, oh, you botched this guy's case, well, you can only share so many details. So, yeah, you know what? Whatever decision they chose to make, I think it ended up being the right one because look at where they're at right now. They're in a great spot. Tyler Williams and those guys have done a fantastic job of keeping players healthy and on the field. So it's
not to mention what started the show talking about overseas games.
Mm-hmm.
The whole way they treat the overseas travel. So they minimize jet lag and have the players ready to play.
And that came
undefeated.
Yeah, they're the only team undefeated in international games. They're the only team, I believe, now to have 3 wins. I don't know if the Jaguars might.
What?
They're the only just international games. I think the Jaguars have 3 wins because they've also played like 12 games overseas.
I grokked it, but Grokk's only showing 4, but I know it's more games than that we've played overseas. But we have not lost one. We have won since 83.
Yeah.
83, 93, 2013, 2024.
Get excited. Schedule releases next week, and we're going to be live talking about it as it happens, breaking down all the little nuances, intricacies of the schedule. And also, we hope to see you later this week. Now, keep in mind, there could be some potential movement of these shows because of Dave's schedule with moving. So that's why we ask you hit subscribe, hit that button in the top corner. We'll communicate as well, but it's the easiest thing for it to be sent to your phone. Hey, there's a show in a half an hour. And we try to make things as easy as possible. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to me rant once again about how much I don't like national media. But I also understand it's a very hard job. I just wish that the Vikings were paid more attention. That's all I want. Just pay the Vikings the attention that they've earned.
Hey, they can play the Rodney Dangerfield all day and use it as motivation.
Yeah. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining. We got a lot more this week. And we'll be here. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everyone.
SKOL Vikings. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!